Hi, and welcome everyone to the end of financial year webinar for financial year 25-26. I'd like to thank each one of you for taking the time to join us. My name is Ananda, and I'll be stepping you through the first part of today's webinar. We've broken this session down into three parts. The first part of this session is all about the changes in your Agrimaster file that could ease your end of financial year process. We will finish this part with a quick demo of the Agrimaster file. We will then move on to the second part of the webinar, which will be covered by our payroll consultant, Dow. He will show you all the changes and updates you need to do in Wagemaster, and we'll finish up with a quick Wagemaster demo. After that, we will move into the last part of the webinar, where we will discuss the Payday Super introduced by the ATO, which starts from 1st of July 2026. The process you would follow does not really change. However, as we do this once a year, we'll try and cover this as much as possible. At the end of the webinar, we will answer any questions that you guys might have. A good idea is to hold your questions until the end of the webinar, as we will answer them at the end. If you're a first-time user of GoToWebinar, go to our help center, and you can just in the little box, you've got a little chat icon. You can simply write your questions, and we can answer them as we go. Also, you will receive the end of financial year checklist and guides for each of these products. They're already available in Help Center for you to download. Also, the recording of this webinar will be sent to all the subscribers and will be available in the Help Center. I'd just like to mention that we at Agrimaster are not accountants, so we cannot give you accounting advice. We are here to give you information for administration and bookkeeping processes that you must follow and comply with to be tax ready. So we'll start by looking at 7 simple steps that you need to follow for your end of financial year process for Agrimaster. These are updating cash book, tidying and matching the codes, finalizing all your payments that are need to go in this financial year, update your budget and superannuation, reconcile Agrimaster for the whole financial year. So if you are a few months behind, make sure you reconcile all the way to 30th of June. Prepare the reports to complete your BAS for the last quarter of the financial year. Check all the tax setups for cash book and for budgets. So updating cash book is something that the cash book is all about, checking that there is no outstanding debits or credits in your cash book. All the transactions listed need to be received or paid in this financial year. Otherwise, move them to the next. This is very important to ensure your GST is not over or underpaid. You should also create a list of questionable transactions and run them by your accountant. You can do this by running the cash trial balance report. This is quite an advanced report with multiple filters, and we will show you how to run this in the demo. There's also a creditors and debtors report, which provides a detailed breakdown of the splits within the codes, making it easier to check for any discrepancies. The process you will do to fix any discrepancies, this is the process that you will do to fix any discrepancies, and then run the report again after the changes so that it's ready to submit to your accountant. In a nutshell, all the reports we mentioned above are available in tab Reports under Cash Book Reports, Accounting Reports, and then Cash Trial Reports, as you can see in the screen. Just an important thing to remember here, always remember to back up your file each time you make any changes. Tidying codes. If you have been using Agrimaster for a long time, your code list may have codes that you would like to merge or amalgamate, such as codes that are no longer required, codes with incorrect spelling, duplicated codes, or similar codes. You cannot delete any codes that have been used in your cash book for any transactions or in any invoices. You need to modify or merge the codes first to remove any links to an entry, and then you can delete the unwanted codes. To do this, you go to Cash Book, find and edit, choose the old or wrong code that you wish to remove in the codes field. Please note that you need to have if you have multiple names that need to be merged into one, you will need to do this process one at a time. All transactions matching the search parameters will be listed. With the highlighted icon, you can now view or edit each the transactions. When you're finished, click on Replace button and follow the remaining instructions to merge the codes. Please note that this process should only be used if you have checked with your accountant and understand how changing codes will affect your reporting. Do not use this feature to edit enhanced invoices. To edit invoices, go to Enhance Invoices screen, search for the paid or unpaid invoice, and then use Edit Invoice feature. Make sure that you can keep an eye on the tax categories as well and amend your budgets to match the changes that you make in your cash book. Now, also handy feature in Agrimaster is hiding your codes. If you look at the diagram on the right, to go to that diagram, start from home screen, click Setup and Tools, click Cashbook Setup, and click Codes. Select the codes that are no longer required. Click the box to add the tick against Hide this code, and click the green tick to save. After that, what will happen, the code will not show in the code list of creating transactions or invoices when you do your books. Matching your codes, what we mean by this is your accountants or consultants may have alternate codes. If you go into your setup and tools, cashbook setup, alternate codes, you can see on this, as you can see on the screen, you will be able to match those codes. It will show you what codes and names they use. So it's a good idea to match your codes with your accountants so that they all align and there is no confusion. The accountants and consultant codes function is used for exporting your data into their software. So you can export the codes and code names that your accountant uses as per their advice to make these changes. Let's now move on to the finalizing your payments. For accruals customers, ensure all the transactions are recorded correctly in appropriate financial year. For any large capital gains that you want to claim in this year, check the transaction dates and update it if needed so that that the transactions can fall within this financial year. This is to ensure that you have the GST recorded correctly so you can claim it as a tax deduction in the financial year 25-26. Now, this is different to reconciling this payment against your bank statement. Plant and machinery purchases have different procedures. This will all depend on how you've made the purchases, either outright or via loan or via payment option, and the way you report to the ATO, through accruals or through cash. You will need to seek your accountant's or financial advisor's advice about when and how you need to record these transactions in the cash book. We can only guide you and show you how to actually do it once you've made a decision on how to. Budget and super. So this part of the budget is very straightforward as we all know that the superannuation rate is remaining at 12% and won't increase further unless the government decides to make these changes in the future. To update your budget, keep your budget up to date, including projections through to the end of financial year. If there's anything that changes, update it as soon as possible so you always have a very clear picture of your financial position. Also, be aware of upcoming changes on the super payments. With the ATO introducing Payday Super, you will need to adjust your cash flow planning to reflect more frequent super contribution into your budget. Make sure your actuals are all up to date as well. This will assist in completing the report you need for the accountant. So once you reconcile the month of June, run the 12 months budget to actuals report. If it will provide you with EOFY status, whether your projections were accurate or if you were above or below your expected numbers. To run this budget comparison report, go to Cashbook, click on Reports, click the budget comparison, and then budget comparison report window will be displayed. Select the budget you wish to use to compare the actuals with. In Cashbook data, select the month you wish to compare. The field should be left as it is. Select the same bank that you have in your budgets. Select Cashbook as basis. In the report type, we suggest try full alternative first and then try the shop with notes so you can put some notes in there. And then click the green tick to view and print the report. You can print this report and save it as a PDF and then it can be emailed. So next step is to reconcile all aspects of Agrimaster. It is very important to check if for any discrepancies while you're reconciling in all the areas listed above through Agrimaster and your payroll software. as well as what has been reported to the ATO. All the word reconcile means that you're balancing whether the information and the final numbers add up or not. The things you should concentrate on when reconciling bank accounts: your bank accounts are listed correctly in your cash book. For GST and Agrimaster, need to make sure that reconciling the GST payable or receivable in Agrimaster adds up. The easiest way to reconcile GST is to create a stack report that is GST inclusive, and use this report to get a listing of all the transactions listed by code for a specified period of time, which in case will be financial year, which will include all the GST components. You can then compare this against what you have in your asset register and what your accountant has on record. Reconciling employee super, once again, this is use the stack report is the easiest way. You have an option to pull this report per month or quarter by codes, and then select the staff super for each for the financial year range. Little note here: when you run a stack report, please ensure that you've selected the right super clearing month in the filter. For example, if you're paying a month's super in the next month in your cash flow, you need to select, for example, if you're doing January to March, if you're doing it quarterly, and if you're running that report, you also need to include April, because that January to March quarter you would have paid in April. Wages and tax report: with your payroll software, you need this report to complete payment summaries for employees. Check that the figures in Agrimaster match your payroll software, and check that all the wages and transactions for this financial year are recorded correctly. Check fuel tax rate setup. To check fuel tax setup, you need to go into setup, tools, cash book setup, tax, and fuel tax rebate, and then you can check if your fuel rebate has been up to date and set up correctly. This may seem too much work in checking and might seem time consuming. However, if you spend the time now, it'll save you a lot of time later on, and also obviously keeps you on top of your numbers. This will have an overall view of you will have an overall view of your financial health and year-to-date growth to make business decisions with confidence and meet the compliance requirements set up by the ATO. For more information, talk to your accountant and follow the end of financial year guide. Completing your BAS. Only after you've done all the previous 5 steps, you should go on to this step for your BAS. You can review a draft report by going into cash report, tax report, then select the BAS section, view and print only. We suggest you seek guidance from your advisor before finalizing and submitting your BAS reports. Tax setup: once you have gone through all the steps above, it's important to do some housekeeping or cleanup for the new financial year. This should be done at least once a year. This would include make sure all the taxes for your farm business are set up correctly, checked withholding tax setup, installment tax setup, wages tax, GST, and fuel tax. In tax setup, there is an option to turn them off and on in your cash book and in your budget. It depends on what you need for the new financial year. You can also check BAS frequency, whether you're doing it monthly, quarterly, or yearly for each tax. Check whether you are set up for cash or accruals in the GST section, and also check and claim the percentages of your business and the percentages of personal or joint expenses in under proportional code setup. Finally, also make sure that you have cleaned your contact center, bank accounts, hidden any unused enterprise allocations and farm codes. And now I think we've completed here. We'll now move into the demo part, and we'll show you some of these features in the software. Hello guys. So we'll just start the demo from the home screen that you're all used to. I will try to cover as much as I can based on the presentation, things that you have to worry about in the end of financial year. So we're going to start with some reports, which are probably something that you do every year, and probably the most important reports as far as end of financial year is concerned. So most of the reports that you need for end of financial year specifically, which is basically most your financial accounting or stuff to do with your P&L and taxes and your day-to-day cash flow, is in accounting reports. So if you go into accounting reports, these two here are probably the most important one. Well, the first one is cash trial balance. Your accountant would want to make sure that your cash trial is balancing. All that means is that from July 2025 to June 2026, all of your debits and credits, opening balances and closing balances of each bank account align. There is no discrepancy in the dollar value. So there is multiple ways to run this report. You can run it for each bank account. You can run it for all the bank accounts. You just simply need to use the mouse and drag it up and down. And you can choose whatever period as well. So obviously in this case, it'll be July to June, which is what we're going to do. And you've got a couple of other options with GST. Without GST, you can print one report without the GST for your income tax. And you can do one with GST to match up your BAS. So multiple ways to do it. You can ask the accountant what they need. You can also choose accountant codes if they're set up. I'll show you where they are if they're not set up. So if your accountant uses specific codes and they don't like to go through farm codes because it's too much time, then you can set up accountant codes against your farm codes, and you can run this report in accounting codes as well. And then you've got these other filters where you need transactions only, transactions with the splits, splits only. So whichever way you think you need this report. So if you need it in details, you need transactions and splits. So I'll just give you an example with totals. So let's just run this report. So basically, it basically goes through all of your total receipts, total payments, and it aligns all of them. So I'll start with the last page, which is basically the gist of it all. This is basically telling you what are your total credits and your total debits in the cash book, and they're aligning for the total bank accounts. As you can see, the closing balances of credits and debits are matching, which means the cash trial is successful. So I won't go much in the detail of cash trial balance, but basically the idea is that both the sides of the ledger should match. You trial your cash book, that all the data is entered is correct data because the credits and debits are all aligning. And it comes up with a lot of other important data as well that can help, which is the balances, your closing and opening balances for each bank account. And then you can go backwards if you need to go into a specific transaction or specific code, how much total was done for the financial year. So you can plan for the tax. You can also export this, so you can save it as PDF, export it as PDF and email it, or you can actually export it as an Excel if you need that for any reason. You can also print. So if you click on print, you can just print there, or you can print as PDF as well. Okay, next report. And if you wanted to run the same report for the accountant with the accountant codes, provided they are set up, then you can run it through that. Also, if you are accruals, you can run it by cash book date. If you are a cash customer, you can run it by bank statement date. So there's too many things to explain, but I'm assuming that you guys already know these things. So I'm just going to go through the reports and the basics specific to any financial year. Okay, next one, which is an important report, is creditor and debtor summary. So again, the reason for running this would be any bad debts, outstanding payments, any payments you were meant to receive, or anything that you were meant to sell or not sell. Any of those decisions that accountant will tell you whether you want to run them in this financial year or the other financial year. Or it needs to be recorded as a bad debt because it's never going to be paid. So it basically gives you the data based on your EFTs and invoices, pending EFTs and pending invoices, and anything pending in the cash book for that financial year. So again, a very important report, something that's worth discussing. What do you want to do with that money? Does that money need to go in this financial year, or you need to move it to the next financial year based on your income tax? Again, you can export it as Excel. And based on the decisions or outcomes that come out of your meeting with your stakeholders, like your accountants and consultants, then you can do something about those payments. Next is balance sheet and your P&L. These are, again, very powerful tools. Agrimaster is something very unique product in this regard because it does your double entry without you doing that entry. So all of that happens in your chart of accounts. So if you set up your asset register and if you set up your second layer of your coding properly, your P&L and your balance sheet will automatically be generated. Balance sheet will basically give you all your assets, liabilities, and equity from your asset register and from your cash book. bank accounts. So any current assets from your cash book, any non-current assets and non-current liabilities from your asset register. So another very good tool. We won't go in detail, but you can take our help if you want to learn more about it. Something that can save your accountant a lot of time and you a lot of money if it's been set up properly. You can simply just present this report. All it needs is if your data is done correctly, you basically just present this report and that's 80% of the work done. And same with the P&L. If your P&L coding is set up properly, all you have to do is just do your normal cash book reconciliation. Your P&L will be generated automatically. So as far as financial accounting is concerned, there's only 3 reports. It's your P&L, your balance sheet, and statement of cash. They are all sitting here. I personally think it's always a good opportunity to look at everything when you're doing something like this, when you're planning for tax. So if you want to look at your enterprise reports, again, if they're set up properly, you can get your gross margins out of this. You can get your graphical reports. You can run this. This will basically give you any big ticket items. So part of managerial accounting, not really financial accounting. So if I run this for the financial year, you can very quickly you can see all of your payments and your expenses, what percentage of what group heading has contributed to your income and expenses for that period. So basically, this is telling you what percentage of costs are sitting where in your business, and this is telling you your percentage of income. Again, a really, really good report for managerial accounting, extremely powerful. You can also go into details. So this is another way of looking at it. It's just a circular graph. It tells you the same thing, like a tabular one. And if you wanted to go in details of any of these specific expenses or specific incomes, you can click on this expense and it'll just basically give you specific transactions for those numbers. Where are they coming from? And you can go look into those transactions. You can go into stat report. If you have any problems with the numbers, if you don't like the numbers, like 70% of herbicide, obviously this is a demo report, so it's not correct. But if this was a real thing where you find these issues, you can actually go into stack report. You can run this against your enterprise and you can see why this is, or what's the reason for this, or is it a book entry error, or is it a genuine error in the operations that something needs to be rectified. So again, very, very powerful. You can export it as a PDF. Another one is your budget comparison. So I will go through this at the end because I'll just show you with the Payday Super what changes you need to do in Agrimaster, especially in budgets. How do you need to manage your cash flow and how quickly you can do that in Agrimaster. So let's start with the next one we'll do is tax reports. So this is again very important. This is something you do every quarter or monthly based on however you do your BAS. So on the left side, you will see all of your outstanding. So you can see that my January to March BAS is still due. We are in June. So obviously for this, first thing is you need to close this BAS period. So I'll quickly do that. And I've kept it open for a reason so I can show you how to close the previous BAS if you still have it open. If you don't use this feature, you can just click on this button. This is the previous one, so I won't create a transaction. Chances are I'm reconciling June, so I've already done the manual work for it, but ideally you should be creating a transaction from here because it saves you a lot of time. It automatically does all the coding for all different taxes. So another opportunity to do a quick cleanup. If there is anything in your cash book that any taxes that should be activated, any taxes that should be turned off, you can quickly go through each of these codes, each of these tax setup, wages tax, withholding tax, installment tax, and fuel tax and GST. And you can change them up and down, whether they are quarterly or monthly. Any of those changes, you can do them in your tax setup. Any codes that needs to be changed, any allocations that need to be changed, all of that happens here. So as I've closed this period, so you can see we are in June. So this is what ideally most of your cash book should show this period. And you can go through each report. So on the top, you've got GST reports. So depending on how many taxes you've got turned on, it'll give you reports specific to those taxes. So you can run them individually for this quarter. And then you can, it's not because I haven't closed June yet. That's why it's grayed out. It's not letting me open my current BAS. But what you can do in that scenario where you still are working in your June cash book data to reconcile it, you can go and report any period, and you can either run financial year, July to June BAS, if you want to do any reconciliation, or you can specifically run it for April to June. If you put all your data, you can just run these numbers before you can actually close the month. You can do some tax planning here, pre-tax planning, what needs to go through, what doesn't need to go through. So necessarily you might not want to close June just yet, speak to your accountant, but you can run these numbers. You can take printouts of these values before you go for your meeting with those stakeholders. So you can run individual reports for each taxes, and then you can do a joint BAS for all the taxes for this period. And you can also report and print it. And you can also run one for 1st of July 25 to June 26. Also run these. So very powerful if set up properly. If you are trained on it, you can do a lot of this work. It can save you, again, a lot of money and a lot of time with the accountant, and also save them a lot of time so they can focus on things like how to grow the business and how to make better decisions, financial decisions in the business, rather than stuff that can be easily done through the software and just good bookkeeping. That's how you do the BAS. If you want to open any previous BAS period, I'll quickly show that as well. We have a lot of videos on this, so you can obviously go through BAS videos. But if you want to reprint the past period or open previous BAS, the one that I've just closed, I can open each tax period there as well. Okay. Last one is budget comparison report. So if you're doing your budget to actuals, in my case, let's just go through budget first. So a couple of things you'll have to be changing in budget as well, mostly to do with super. As you know, that super can't be paid quarterly anymore. It has to be paid with your pay. So if you're paying weekly, you need to pay it weekly. If you're paying your pay to your employees fortnightly, you'll have to pay your super within the 7 days of that pay period. So a couple of things which that will go through in detail. You need to make sure that you ATU's free super clearinghouse is closing, so you need to make sure you've sorted that out. But I'm just going to follow through on the budget side of it. So it's extremely critical for cash flow forecasting because it's a big number. It could be a big number if you've got a lot of employees, and also sometimes, especially in those tight months when you're seeding, or when you're doing harvest, you've got big bills coming in your cash flows. You need to make sure that you have enough money assigned to the super. So if you're working in quick budget, I would recommend do a full budget. It's a lot easier. But if you are doing a quick budget, an example would be you would have something like this, a cash flow forecast for the year, calendar year. I've done a production year. And if you've got employee super code, they're in expenses. So there I've got employee super. So I've got red, I've got a worksheet behind it. You can see I've already done this work to show you. This is how, if you've got 4 or 3 employees in this case, and say I've got Bob, Tom, and Stella, and each of them, there is, in this example, I've put 3, but say there are 2 PPs, you're doing them fortnight. What is the cost per PP? $600 for super. That's 12% of whatever their gross is. So you can work that out, and then you can just put that number of PPs multiplied by cost per super amount per PP for each employee. So that will give you the total here. As you can see, 5,400 in our example. We are paying $600, and we've got 3 cycles. Normally it would be either 2, or it would be 4, or it would be 1 if you are doing monthly. Whichever your case is, this is just an example. This is how you work it out, that it's 5,400. And if you've got them here and there, like I have all over the place, you can literally just work on the first one. So in your case, if you already started in the beginning of the year, then obviously you can start from the beginning. But in your case, if you're starting from 1st of July as a payday super, then you will start making it from 1st of July. So I will just quickly show you how to copy. Once you've built a formula, once you build a worksheet, you can literally just copy that worksheet into each one of these. So you just go copy previous month, or you could also do select a month to copy if you're doing it from June. So if I go on July, 1st of July, I can copy it from January. Most of the time, the number is not going to change. Obviously, the frequency is going to change. So whatever you're paying, you'd be normally paying whatever the month is, multiplied that by 3 each quarter, but now you'd be paying that monthly. So just work this out from top and just make sure that you have done it correctly in your cash flow forecast. So I'm going to do it for the whole year, but for people who've done it for the whole year, if they were prepared and if they were, I know a lot of customers who've been planning this for a while. So they've started doing this from January onwards or February onwards. But if you're doing it from 1st of July, you'll obviously have to do this from July onwards. So that's how you can very quickly work it out. Oh, I've just gone 3,600. It should be 5,400. Just quickly change that to my example. So, and also another thing here to keep in mind is your monthly, there will be a couple of, if you're doing fortnight payments, there will be a couple of fortnights where you will have a frequency of 3, rest of them will have a frequency of 2. So there will be probably 2 months in a year where you'd have extra PP. So just work it out. I mean, for most of you guys, if you're doing your payroll, you would be pretty good at getting your numbers. You just need to make sure you've entered them in your cash flow properly so that you forecasted for it. And then if you run your numbers, you will see the total value of employee super every month, how much it's going to, and it'll go to your bottom line of the cash flow super. So that's our total amount, and that's gone into our cash flow. And that will obviously change our cash flow forecast. Yep, so that's how you do it in Quick Budget. If you've got a full budget, it's a lot easier. So I've got a full budget. Usually we recommend 2 copies, at least a baseline budget and an actuals budget. So if I've got an actual ongoing working budget, I can simply just go into my worksheets. So if I go open worksheets, so you've got a fixed cost worksheet here, which will have employee super. So in this case, in this example, we've got Tim, full-time employee. We've got work periods, which is 52 weeks. We're paying him weekly. And obviously, all of these numbers, his super is 12%. And at the moment, it is sitting. You just need to make sure that it is monthly, like it is. So in your case, it might have been. Currently, it might be quarterly, starting from April. This is what you might have. You might have it like that. So just all you have to do is just click on months or press F5 with the function key. Make sure you've got the right code and either just go monthly starting from January, and that'll automatically just, so that's how simple it is. That's the only change you have to make. And you go back to your budget, it will automatically work it out in your cash flow. So if I go into employees superannuation's gone monthly. So if you have multiple employees, obviously you add those and it'll just work it out. Okay, that's how simple that is. And the last one is, the last report is your budget to actuals. So that's something you should be doing monthly, but if you want to do year to date, you can simply just do your, in your actuals budget, you can just take a snapshot of this actuals budget. I've already taken it. So whenever you've made some changes, go current budget, save it again. So this is your current budget with all the changes. So I already saved mine, end of financial year to date analysis. With all the changes, I can simply just go into my reports, go home, cash book reports, budget comparison, and just whichever one you're doing. If you've got a budget from January to June, you can quickly run that. And I'll show you budget to actuals forecast, and then you can import the budget. So you can run your variance. You can run it with notes. So you can put some notes, and then you can go back to that budget. You can import the actuals. Everything else is about setup. So another thing is housekeeping, going into your codes, making sure you can hide any codes that you don't need anymore. So if there are any codes here that you want to hide, you can just press this and press the green tick. That'll hide that code. If you have a replacement, we talked about the replacement. So in this example, I'll just use telephone. So if we have, I think we've got an overhead. So if I want to replace all the data from telephone into mobile, I'll just create a new code mobile. This is just an example, but if you have to do something like this, if you have to replace all the data and you have to delete an old code and you want to replace it with a new code, you just create a new code first. right next to the old code, and then you can just go into find and edit. Click on this, it automatically pops up and you go into find and edit. And you can do this with enterprise allocations, literally anything in Agrimaster. Just go from the beginning of the time and select the code that you want to replace. So I want to replace telephone with mobile. That's my code. It'll bring all the data that is in this cache book from beginning all the way to now. And I want to replace that with mobile. So I'll just swap. It'll give you an option against the code. I'll put mobile. There. You can do the same thing with enterprise. So if I was choosing an enterprise, I would select an enterprise, replace it. This is basically how you merge all the data from one code to another, and then you can delete that old code. So I'll just go and delete the mobile code, telephone code. If I go back into setup, cache book setup, codes, look for telephone in overheads. Okay, so I've got some GST corrections on this telephone. So I've done some corrections in the past. So I'll have to go and delete those corrections as well. So this probably wasn't the right example, but in your case, once you've done this, you can delete it, or you can simply just hide that code. But deleting is a good option as well if you've done this. But be very careful, you know what you're doing, or use our service if you are not sure what you're doing. If you have to do a cleanup, also good opportunity to go through this. This code is heart of Agrimaster. So all these group headings are set up properly. You've got, so when I was talking about the P&L and balance sheet, this code layer at the bottom, this is what Agrimaster is quite brilliant in how it creates a lot of reports. I mean, people think that you have to do a lot of entries, but basically just for that entry, it creates some amazing reports. So all of your P&L, your assets and liabilities, all of that works from here. So basically, if you know a lot about P&L, you can discuss this with your accountant. Put all of your items that are sales, cost of sales. So if you go into income, these are different kinds of income. You can just select if it's a direct income, or if it's an indirect income, or a capital receipt, or a GST. If you go under payments, it'll give you all the payments for that are required in your P&L, which is variable cost, fixed cost, capital and development. So all of these, all of your codes should be set up correctly. So this section is for tax, for your GST and taxes. And this section is for your rest of your financial accounting and a lot of that managerial accounting as well. What code is an overhead? What code? So if you understand different kind of costs, you should make sure that your setup is done correctly. Also, you can pre-assign the quantities to things like special transactions like fuel and your specific income like used sales and sheep shell sales. Anything that is definite quantity, you can do these setups. A lot of your work can be done here if this setup is done correctly. Putting things in the right group headings, putting things in the right major heading, all of that. Okay. Last one is alternate codes. We talked about it briefly. So basically, all of your farm codes, and this on the left side, you've got your budget. So your consultant, if you've got a consultant, their codes. On the right side, you've got your accountant's codes. So most of the difference is Agrimaster is designed for multiple stakeholders, which is the farm owner, yourselves, and the accountant, the consultant, the bank, all of that. So sometimes, because their purpose to get the data are different, they might have different code setup. Chart of accounts are something that's very generically used. And so, for example, accountant doesn't need to know what data is going under wheat, under canola, barley. They might just need your total income. So they might have one code for all the income. They might have 0002. So you can just put that code against all of your income. So when you export your cash trial balance, it'll basically just give the total income to us in accountant's code. So you can map all of these like they're mapped here. And yeah, you can just export it. Saves them a lot of time. So instead of they going through all of your different income codes, they will just get their report as total income and total expenses to do the tax. Okay, that is pretty much it. For the scope of this session, I will now pass the webinar on to Daud, and he's just going to take you through the Wagemaster side of things. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ananda. My name is Dawood, and we will now move on to Wagemaster EOFY steps. If you do not use Wagemaster, you don't need to listen to the next section of the webinar. There may be some processes that will still apply if you use other payroll software, so in saying that, you are more than welcome to stay. As you can see, there are 6 steps that we will go through. Back up your file with File Manager after any changes. Ensure you are on the latest version of Wagemaster. Determine your final PPE to adjust the final year boundaries accordingly. Follow best practices. Reconcile reports. Run super reports and ensure payments have been made. And STP final pay. Next step is the STP2 checklist. Checking all information is correct on file. Review your company details in Wagemaster by checking the legal or trading name, ABN, and addresses, etc. Ensuring they are all correct, as the payment summaries will carry those details along with STP reporting done under those details as well. You will also need to check and confirm employee details, ensuring up-to-date details are being reported to the ATO. There are a few reports that you can run to find out missing TFNs or duplicate files, among other things. To prompt your employees to check and update their current details that you have for them, it may be an idea in the pay periods leading up to your end of financial year to show these details on their pay slips and adding global messages asking them to inform you if any details have changed. You might need to confirm allowance settings, as we have seen few customers making a mistake here. Allowances refer to function handling both additions and deductions to an employee's pay. Allowances are also used for paying employees' wages by some users who pay employees on a per unit basis, such as shearers or crutches. For STP reporting, the ATO requires allowances which are reported separately to the employee's individual non-business gross amount. To be categorized according to predefined list of ATO types such as meal allowances, car allowances, among other things. These separate allowances are excluded from the gross total on the ATO payment summary report and are listed separately for claiming individually. Some employees claim them individually when lodging their tax return. It is therefore very important to only show the qualifying allowances separately via STP reporting. Changing tax descriptions, making sure our file configuration is set up, and also mapping our tax tables and mapping our allowances to ensure it fits under the new compliance action. So for those of you that have completed the advised steps for the STP2, congrats, you've completed a big chunk of EOFY steps already. For everyone else that has not done these steps yet, you do have time, but sooner rather than later is preferred. After all, complying with new regulations is crucial. Starting with the preparation for end of financial year, the first checks: backup and update. Do as many backups as you can whenever you are making any changes. Make sure to be on the latest version when you do the finalization process. Wagemaster updates are manual, not automated like Agrimaster. We will send the new release email at the end of June, and our help center articles will also be updated with the latest download link. It is very important to determine your last pay run for the financial year as soon as possible, as ATO requirements state that all salary and wage payments must be reported in the financial year they are received. The ATO regards the STP payment date as determining the financial year in which the pay falls in Wagemaster. The diagrams above show the screens in Wagemaster that you would use to check and change boundaries if needed for both the taxation year boundary and the superannuation boundary. Let's go to the next slide where I have a visual diagram. So as you can clearly see, the last day of the 25-26 financial year falls on Tuesday, June 30th. The left-hand side shows, in a very straightforward way, if both the PPE date and the STP or EFT date happen to be on the same date, then it applies in the same financial year. No action is required. However, if your company has a pay period on or before the 30th of June 2026, where the EFT processing date or the STP payment date is from 1st of July or later, this needs to be reported in the financial year 26-27, not the 25-26 financial year. If this is the case for your business, you need to change the financial year period end to exclude any PPE dates in Wagemaster, as you are making the payment to the employee in the new financial year. Please keep in mind the payment method you use and the time of pay you are processing this pay, as this can be crucial if you are processing after 3:30 p.m. The Reserve Bank is closed and it will not clear until the next business day. As we just mentioned in the previous slide, if the pay for the last PPE date in June is paid to employees in June, or it is the first PPE date in July is paid to employees in July, no action is required. You can skip this step. If the change is required, it needs to be made prior to saving your last pay in the 25-26 financial year. There are a few points you need to consider before touching the year-end boundaries, such as the period end cannot be changed if you have already saved a pay beyond that date. If changing the year-end boundaries for the taxation year, please carefully consider the date that you are selecting. If you make a mistake, it would be too late. The system will not allow you to change the year-end boundary date a second time for the same financial year. And unfortunately, we do not have any workaround for this. Do not change the period end boundary if the pay period ending date and the payment date is in the same financial year. Create a backup before you change the period end boundary. And once a pay PPE has been processed past the set period end boundary, referenced in the taxation year boundary screen, these dates cannot be changed. This procedure is only applied in instances where the pay period end date falls on or before the 30th of June. But payment processing and so your STP reporting payment date is July 1st or later. So to simplify it for you, if you change the end of the pay period, it determines which financial year the payment period end date falls in. By changing this date to, let's say, the 3rd of July, you are pretty much overriding the system and telling it that, hey, this financial year does not end on the 30th of June, it ends on the 3rd of July. And by doing this, the last PPE will be included in the current financial year, so it acts sort of like a divider to separate the PPE dates towards the end of June from those in July. The same thing will need to be completed for superannuation boundaries if you are processing the month or the quarter payment in advance. So if you have superannuation contributions that have been paid and not left your account by the 30th of June for all required payments until the 3rd of July, you will need to adjust the superannuation boundary. Now, this does not get adjusted by date, but by how many days. I'll flip back to our previous slide to show you what it looks like. As you can see here, it's by a slider, by the number of days, so from 0 to 7. Moving on. First are the employee detail reports that you can run for missing TFNs or duplicate files, so it's easier to narrow down if there is a discrepancy. Check if the employee details are still all correct, especially leading up to the end of financial year. Handy tip, this is where the messages and reminders come in really handy. You can add a question or a statement on each employee's payslip instead of chasing them down and asking for information. Check the superannuation settings, as I mentioned earlier. Make sure that they are up to date and that ordinary time earnings calculation has been included. This is also a good time to check for salary sacrifice contributions and statutory contributions for your employees. Ensure you have correctly coded and reported this to date. Run a super audit report. Based on the awards and superannuation conditions, this will save you time by not having to check each award separately. Important to also enter and report the information of any fringe benefits that you may have forgotten about. Up to $2,000 taxable gross for a reportable fringe benefit is entered as a direct entry in the payment summary screen in the employee's record. Firstly, you should be checking that your Wagemaster wages and tax report totals match those in your Agrimaster tax reports. The report should be run to ensure that the wages recorded and reported through STP in Wagemaster match the wages recorded and paid in your Agrimaster cashbook software. To cross-check that the wages tax withheld or for each period reconciles with Agrimaster, you will need to run a payment summary report in Wagemaster as well as Agrimaster. If you do not find any discrepancies before the final pay run, then you can make adjustments as required before doing the final pay run to correct the totals of the year. Sorry, that was if you have found discrepancies. If not, then you are all good to close it. Second thing would be to reconcile super. This is to ensure all the payments have been made and all the obligations have been met. One way of doing this is by a stacked report in Agrimaster. and by pulling a superannuation report in Wagemaster year to date. Each time you run the reports, print them or save them as a PDF on your desktop, then reconcile payment summary values. Only when you have checked over all the sections and you are happy and confident with the information, you can then submit the final STP pay. Remember, there is no turning back. This is where it is very important you do all the steps we advised you today. This wraps up the section for preparation of end of financial year that is recommended to be finished by the end of June. We have detailed help articles, including steps from start to finish for all the points we discussed today. Remember, you have all the resources at your fingertips, and we will send you today's video, and you have an abundance of information on the website under Help Center, and as well as the EOFY guides, which I'll show you shortly as well, towards the end of the section. All right, moving on to the next section. STP reporting actions for end of financial year. When you have completed all the pay events and update events for the year, you then notify ATO that you have provided all information for each employee for the financial year. The final STP report gives you the final summary, the entirety of what you are about to submit. Prior to submitting, create a record. Even though you think, oh yeah, it looks good, I urge you to go through and check the final summary report again. Print or export the report. As you can see, it has a lot of information. Make the adjustments if needed. Some changes may need to be made in Wagemaster and some may be in Agrimaster, depending on the discrepancy. Make sure that all your payments and obligations have been met, and only then should you submit the final STP report. Remember what I said, there's no going back, and if you submit an incorrect report, there will be an ATO intervention. When reviewing the report, it is a great time to check that allowances, fringe benefits, tax rates, etc. are displayed correctly. When you have checked everything, tick the final pay checkbox as shown on the slide. If you are happy with all the information, you can submit the report via the ATO icon on the top right. There is a few points to STP final event that are optional. In an STP-enabled system, employees can access their earning data via the MyGov account, which means the distribution of ATO payment summaries to employees is no longer an obligation for you as an employer. If you wish to issue summaries for any reason, though, there is a detailed help note on the Help Center covering your options. House cleaning in Wagemaster is also optional, however recommended, as when the database is large, the performance slows and lags, so it's a good idea to perform house cleaning. It should also be performed when there has been a change of ownership and historic information belonging to the old company needs to be cleared out so that the new company starts with a clean slate. Okay, everyone, so that brings you to a completion status for the current year. Next, you will need to get ready for the next new financial year. I know it's an ongoing cycle, but it's what we have to do. What you need to update next is the tax tables for the 26-27 financial year. These will be provided in the June email communications via marketing close to the end of the financial year. The tables will incorporate any changes released by the ATO. All the links on the Help Center will also be updated so you can download them from there. And before you process the first pay run of a new financial year, it is a must to update the tax tables before the pay run to avoid any discrepancies and adjustments. At the beginning of each financial year, you should check that the SGL percentage and quarterly super cap, which is a maximum contribution base, in all your relevant Wagemaster award configurations are up to date. The superannuation will remain at 12% and the maximum contribution base will be at $62,500 per quarter. And if any changes were to happen, it will be updated on our website as well. So ensure that these are correct in place prior to the first pay in the new financial year, the 26-27 year. That brings us to the last point of the day. Most troubleshooting issues when you are trying to finalize the year, the first step you need to take is to have a look at the Help Center resources available to you. We have seen a lot of different issues and we have created a lot of the articles for these frequently asked questions and have made a section for it as well. If you've exhausted the resources and your issues is still not resolved, please reach out and our customer success team will be happy to assist. The reason we urge you to research your own troubleshooting is that this is how you will learn the ins and outs and the workarounds. So if the same error occurs in the future, you will know exactly what to do as opposed to us troubleshooting on your behalf. And in many cases, you might get the solution quicker, as at that time of year, it's the busiest for the customer success team. So please be patient, as your inquiries may take extra time for resolution. All right, now we are going to do a demo. I have here our demo file, it's a test file. So there will be a couple of things that we won't be able to cover, but majority we will be able to get through. All right. So I will show you the reports that we spoke about earlier in your Wagemaster, where you can see the superannuation calculations, a breakdown of them, as well as the superable earnings. If you go to your reports in the top there and into superannuation, then you can go into SGL reports. You can set it for the financial year here on the top left, and it will show all the employees you have for that financial year, how much of it was a superable earnings, and how much they were guaranteed calculations here. All right. But also, there is a very good report that you should also have a look in cases where your employee has salary sacrifice or employer additional contributions or employee contributions. You can go to the superannuation section here, and then you can go to year to date. Year to date will set it automatically as financial. You can choose calendar or financial. There's different ways that you can structure this, but for what we're doing now, year to date financial is what would be most applicable. It shows you here per employee how much of it was employer contribution, any salary sacrifice if they had, and the total amount, I guess, there. So then when you are doing your discrepancy checks, you won't be calculating the salary sacrifice as a guaranteed contribution so that it doesn't throw off your totals. On the top here, there's also the button where it takes you to the next page where you can see all the other employees and do the same check for them. Another very useful report is the payment summary. I'm sure most of you have already used this, but it's very good to show anyway. The payment summary can be set to year to date as well. It can be done quarterly. You can do a custom date range, anything that you need. If you are doing a quarterly discrepancy check, for example, it will show you all their hours, their taxable gross, the tax on it. If you want to marry this up with your Agrimaster, this is where you would see it. Any additions and deductions for their allowances, and the net pay as well as the super. This is almost indispensable. It shows you everything that you need to see. Another one that provides further information or a deeper look is also the payroll cross-check. So if you go into the employee screen and down into the payroll cross-check, you can set, for example, a year to date, and you can choose one employee or you can choose all. Once you hit refresh, it will show you a much deeper breakdown of what the earnings for that period are. How much on a weekday, the hours, the weekends, overtime, and so on. This way you'll be able to actually get a better idea and understanding of how much of their earnings was divided into what. All right. So moving on. Another thing, I will show you where you can update the super contributions. So when you click the awards section there, this screen will come up. You can choose one of the awards here by double clicking it or clicking it and then clicking edit up top, and it will take you to the award. You can then see who's on that award by clicking employees in the general section. And then when you're happy with that's the one that you want to update, you can go to payments, superannuation, and then you can change the details here to match the new rules. For example, when you're happy with the changes, you can click close and that will save it for you. Please bear in mind, you will have to do each award individually they are not an automatic update. You would have to go into each one and change those details yourself. Another thing, when you are doing the awards, if you are planning on importing the awards from the help articles in the new financial year, if you hold a custom award, they will be removed. What I mean by them being removed is that when you import, it will overwrite this whole section and then also remove the custom award that you have. So if that is something that you're okay with, then yeah, please go ahead, but it is something that you should all know about. All right. Another thing, double checking your tax tables. You can check your tax tables by going into setup, tax, and then tables. After you have imported the new ones, which I will show you how to do, you have to look into here before you run your first pay and ensure that all of these are listed as the 26-27 financial year rather than the initial one or the current one, the 25-26. How you get that updated is once you download it from the article, which I will show you now. As you can see on this page, there is a video on how to do it, as well as a link to download the tax tables for that financial year. This is still on the current one, but once we get the new tax tables, we will upload it into this link so you can download it on your end and also upload it. Once you download this, for the sake of an example, this page may come up. Just click download. It will come up here in your download folder. You would then go into your setup, look for associations, tax tables, which will bring this page. You would go to internet and you would tick the tax table section. Update now. Next, the three dots here, and it will show you the tax table, which you would then just double click and be able to upload. And you just follow along the wizard process. Very straightforward, pretty easy to do. Same thing will be done for the awards. Exact same layout. Tick awards, update now, and select the awards file. For the STP2, we can't go into it because it is a demo file, so there is no link. But the screenshot and the articles should be plenty sufficient. And if you have any other questions, you are more than welcome to contact us. We'll be happy to help. All right. Another thing is the taxation year boundaries. This is something that you should also double check, as in case that you have made any changes to your end of your period end, you'll be able to see them here. For example, if you had gone through with the changes last year by making the 3rd of July as the year end or the beginning of the new year, then this here, the 26th financial year, should show the 3rd of July, and then the ending would still be the 30th of June. Also ensure that your superannuation slider is at 0 if you do not intend to have any days not counted or excluded from that period. As discussed in the previous slides, it is by a slider up to 6 days. So depending on how many days you wanted excluded from that period, you would use the slider to go up and down. We'll keep this at 0 because we haven't made any changes, as well as this being the 1st of July till the 30th of June. So that's all good to go. All right, now to show you some of the articles that we have as well. We have an end of financial year section in our help center where you can see the 3 PDFs that you can download: the EOFY troubleshooting, end of financial year preparation, as well as the end of financial year guide. We also have here the checklist and the sections where you can go through it one by one and ensure that you've done everything, as well as a section here in case you run into any issues, and the FAQs that have all the answers for common questions that we generally get. This webinar, once completed as well, will be uploaded into this section here, and also will be available on YouTube. Any help with Employment Hero required as well will be here. Otherwise, they also have their own support, so please feel free to get in touch with them as well. All right. In summary, the key takeaways of today's session are, for Agrimaster, is to ensure that you are double and triple checking everything, making necessary updates, balancing prior to reconciliation, and finalizing. The different types of reports that we covered today are the best way to do this. And when you are sure that everything is correct, you will then be able to complete your BAS. For Wagemaster, the main takeaway is completing your STP2 mapping, ensuring that you have the latest version and backup regularly. Determining your final pay period, you may need to change the taxation end of year boundary and the superannuation boundary. To remind you when you might need to adjust would be if your pay period is on the 1st of July, but the payment is processed on or before the 30th of June. Reconcile using different reports. It is also important to run the superannuation report and to check that you have made the payments, and finally, run your STP final pay. All right, that brings us to the end of the Wagemaster section. Thank you everyone for your time today. We'll be handing the webinar back to Ananda. He'll be playing a video about Payday Super and following it up with a demo. Thank you.
The purpose of this video is to simply explain how Payday Super will affect Wagemaster and Agrimaster customers. Basically, there are two parts to the upcoming change: the superannuation payment frequency for your employees and closure of free small business super clearinghouse by the ATO. Until now, most businesses have paid super quarterly. Under Payday Super, super now will need to be paid at the same time as payroll. For you, this could be weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. The good news for you regarding Wagemaster and Agrimaster: nothing new needs to be set up. Wagemaster already calculates super correctly. Payslips already include super. Agrimaster already allows you to import super weekly, fortnightly, monthly, or quarterly. In Agrimaster, you will only need to change your superannuation payment frequency in your budgets and import-export data section of the cash book to monthly. This will then automatically cater for weekly and monthly. When it comes to importing super, you simply select the same pay period ending or PPE dates that you already use for payroll. That's it. No new buttons, no new reports, no changes to payslip. But an important reminder, because your super is now paid more often, this will affect your cash flow. Perhaps take the time to review your budget after you've made these adjustments, particularly in low cash flow months. ATO Small Business Super Clearinghouse is closing. The ATO Small Business House Super Clearinghouse will be closed after 30th of June 2026. If you're currently using ATO Super Clearinghouse, you must choose a new clearinghouse. This is something you should research yourself or discuss with your accountant. The ATO has provided a step-by-step guide to help you move to a new clearinghouse. You can find all the help articles on the link provided on the screen. What this means in Agrimaster: once you've chosen the new clearinghouse, you will need to set up a new clearinghouse detail in Agrimaster name and bank account setup area of the program. This will allow you to pay super using the EFT tool just like you do now. Agrimaster will continue to handle the payments. Only the clearinghouse details change. Hello and welcome to the demo for Payday Super, guys. So we'll just go through the couple of steps we just mentioned you need to do in your Agrimaster import when you're importing your payslips for Payday Super to make your super payments. So I'll start with the first step that we talked about, which is making sure that you've hidden ATO Super Clearinghouse. If you are with ATO Super Clearinghouse, if you're with someone else, you don't need to do this step. So we'll go into Setup. Cashbook setup, click on names, and in names we'll look for ATO Clearinghouse. I've got that right here, ATO Super Clearinghouse. I'm just going to hide this. Press the green tick. Now, while we're here, we can also do the second step, which is adding your new Super Clearinghouse details. So I'm just going to take an example. We'll call this go new, and we'll call this Prime Super Clearinghouse. Prime Super Clearinghouse. And please put in as much details as possible. Any contact email of the vendor that you deal with, their contact number, their address, all of these things are handy if you ever have to contact them. And then come to the EFT section, save yes, put their BSB and account number. So you'll have the clearinghouse's BSB number and you'll have their account number. I'm just putting a dummy one, but basically you just need to, you can leave this section here empty, the lodgement reference number, because when you do your super stream, you can manually add that, because each time a lot of super clearing houses, they give you a different reference number every time you submit a payment to a super clearing house. So you can leave this bit empty and you can leave this empty as well. So just the BSB, account number, all their contact details, hide the old one, turn on the new one. And then we're done here. So just go that and it'll ask you to save it. Alter, save the EFT settings, yes. And that's we are done with hiding. We're done with putting the new clearinghouse. And now we go into importing the super. So there's different ways to do it. So please don't get confused. Some people go through setup, go into import. Some people go through Cashbook. I'll go through Cashbook. That's what mostly people use. You can either go into transactions or EFT, and then you go import payroll. Now, prerequisites, this is for customers who've got Wagemaster set up and they are importing pay slips and superannuations already. If you don't know what that means, please reach out to us. We can show you how to do this. It makes your life really, really easy. It's good to set up these right processes, and it's going to help you a lot in the next financial year once to make sure that you reconcile everything. It does your setup and your coding automatically. So it's really, really good tool to use if you're not using it already. So in this case, we're just going to tick on the super. This is after your file is set up. So if it's not, then you click on Wagemaster file and set up your file first. You can reach out to us. That's not the scope of this training. In this example, so you basically have to do it at the same time. Whenever you import your payslip, you also need to import your super. So I'm just going to go through the super section, assuming you already do this bit. So one thing I would recommend is having different EFT batches. So do your pay slips first, sort out all your pay slips, and then do your super. One extra step, but obviously keeps it nice and clean. Different EFT batches means that you can, when you do your end of financial year reconciliation by end of financial year 2026, then you can sort out through EFT batches as well, which makes your life very easy, because that's how you would have paid in the clearinghouse. So yeah, I'm just going to choose the last PP. In this case, we'll go, let's do 20th of May. And this is the period. So I'm just going to do the after the 20th of May to 3rd of June. And let's assume the payment date is also 3rd of the. So this is for a PP before the current one that you want to import. So last PP's date. You can put any date before the current PP. So if the current PP is 21st of May, you choose 20th or 19th or something in an area where you've imported the one before this date. And third is the current PP, which is our date where pay period is ending on 3rd of June. And this is the date of payment when you're going to make the payment. And further down, you've got either you can import that as transaction if you're not using the EFT setup in Agrimaster. If you're simply just doing transactions, then you can import them as transactions. Otherwise, we recommend you use the EFT feature. Again, one extra step, but it makes your life very easy when you're reconciling by end of the financial year. So I'm going to import them as EFT, and also you can use SuperStream when you do EFT. So click on import. There we go. We've got 3 pay slips that we've done in this PP, and it's going to bring them with the payment date of 3rd, and I'll quickly have a look at them. So I'll take you straight to those PPs. So if you have any changes to make in terms of payment date and things like those, you can do some adjustments here, any additional notes. But basically, it allocates the employee that you're paying the super to. It puts the description with the date of the name of the PP, puts the right code if it's set up properly in your import tool, and it puts that in the EFT section. Also puts it, this is something you need to have that at post GST. If you don't, there is a little setup in Wagemaster that needs to be turned on, which will make sure that super is coming as post GST. If not, then yeah, it doesn't make a big difference because there's nothing, no tax on it. But yeah, ideally it should be post GST. The bank account, pay to who you're paying. So that's the that should be the super fund clearinghouse, which we'll show you in a minute. So once all of this setup is done, you just come here You go into EFT. I don't think we've got EFT set up on this file, but I'll just see if I can do a little bit of demo. So this section is for SuperStream. You select Amalgamate SuperStream, and for the first time, and if you're doing it for the first time, this is where you're going to select Prime Super. Yeah, Prime Super Clearinghouse. All these details will pop up. This lodgement reference number, you will get it each time you do the payment through the clearinghouse, and then you press the green tick to create an EFT file. Again, I would recommend, and once you do it, next time it'll automatically know that you're trying to do it to Prime Super, so it'll automatically take these details next time. Lodgement reference number you change every time, and we would again recommend to do it separately with the, don't do it with the payslips, because then you can reconcile the amount, how much you're paying to the clearinghouse, what you've recorded in Wagemaster, and what you've recorded in your cash book under the EFT payments. So all three numbers have to match, and this is how you do it. Okay, we're just going to stop here. Thank you very much for watching. Again, guys, if there's any questions or anything like that, please reach out to us at support. More than happy to go through it with you.